Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible to you all.
Yes.
Yes, hi. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. I hope I'm audible to you all. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the confirmation. Welcome to our webinar on Scheme 10 by the Bureau of Indian Standards. I'm Ankita Rai, and I will be your moderator for today's session. We have an exciting and informative agenda lined up, so let's get started. For those joining us for the first time, I will begin with a short introduction on Vincular's business profile. Moderator, please move to the slide. Vincular started its operations in 2012 and is India's leading regulatory compliance consulting company. We cater to brands and manufacturers and their subsidiaries both domestically and internationally, serving as their dedicated compliance partner. We offer solutions that simplify compliance by addressing aspects such as consulting, policy making, risk assessment, and the management of regulatory compliance. We are a one-stop solution covering the horizon of products ranging from electronics, IT, telecommunication, and medical to cosmetics, etc. Next slide is the glimpse of the services we offer under our umbrella. Admin, can you please check if the slide has been moved? The same is not reflecting to my end. Okay, thank you. So these are all the services that we offer. You all may have a look at the same. Further, after the seminar, we will extend the entire presentation deck and the recording of this webinar to all the participants. Before we proceed with the seminar agenda, please know that the Scheme 10 by BIS is about the quality and safety of low voltage switchgear and control gear used in power distribution, control, and protection applications. Today, we aim to delve deeper into the various aspects of this scheme, understanding its implications and addressing any queries that you might have. Our agenda for today includes overview of Scheme 10, its key components and requirements, any recent updates and changes, why Vincular for Scheme 10, followed by a Q&A session. We will have dedicated time for questions at the end, so feel free to type them in the Q&A section present at the top of your desktop screen, and we will do our best to address them. Further, dear participants, please refer to the chat box for some important links, including access to Vincular's blog on Scheme 10, access to the platform where we share regulatory updates on a timely basis for various regulatory requirements, and there is a visibility to Vincular's social media handle. We hope that it helps. Now, let me take a moment to introduce our esteemed speakers. We have Mr. Varghese Joy, a seasoned professional concluded his nearly 4-decade-long career at BIS, where he played a crucial role in diverse activities. His extensive expertise spans various product certification schemes and system certifications. with a focus on products such as switchgears and others, specially trained in electrical products testing at CPRI laboratories by BIS. Mr. Varghese was instrumental in formulating policies during the mandatory certification of transformer introduction. Additionally, he spearheaded the implementation of the smart payment registration system at BIS, significantly benefiting both the industry and the organization. Before his retirement, Mr. Varghese successfully launched the smart certification system and played a pivotal role in streamlining the management system certification at BIS, introducing several innovative schemes during his tenure. His professional endeavors extended to visiting numerous industries and collaborating with standards formulation organizations like DIN and DKE. Furthermore, he represented India in ISO committees contributing to the formulation of international standards. Mr. Varghese holds a degree in electrical engineering and a postgraduate diploma in business management. Welcome, sir. Now we are introducing Mr. Madhusudan Shetty BK, holding a bachelor's degree in electrical and electronics engineering from National Institute of Engineering, Mysore. With an impressive background, he brings 17 years of expertise in testing and certifying low voltage switchgear and control gear products, specializing in circuit breakers. Currently, he holds a level 3 designation for miniature circuit breakers product category and level 2 certification for over 20 different voltage switchgear products. An active participant in industry standards, Mr. Shetty is also a member of ETD07 committee with BIS, contributing to the development of standards for low voltage switchgear and control gear. Welcome, Mr. Shetty. Next, we have Mr. Gaurav Kumar, Senior Manager at Vincular, brings over 7 years of experience in product compliance services. In this role, he is tasked with different oversight of diverse business units, including waste management compliance, ISI mark certification, public policy and licensing, legal metrology, PESO, among others. Gaurav holds a degree in electronics and communication engineering and has completed his MBA in operations management. Welcome, Mr. Gaurav. Now, let us introduce Mr. Raman Baijal, currently serving as the Chief Operating Officer at Vincular. Mr. Baijal holds the responsibility for overseeing the company's profit and loss statement. With a career spanning the past 2 decades, he has gained experience in consulting as well as in business development. Mr. Baijal's professional journey has taken him across the United States, Europe, and India, where he has excelled in both client servicing and business development roles. He is holding a BTech degree from IIT Bombay and further his education with an MS and MBA from Penn State. Welcome, Mr. Raman. They all are experts in the field and will guide us through the various aspects of this scheme. I will now hand it over to Mr. Gaurav to kickstart our presentation. Mr. Gaurav, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ankita. Good morning, everyone. Hope I'm audible to all of you. Just give me a thumbs up if I'm audible. Okay, so hope I'm audible to everyone. Thank you. So before going to the scheme 10, and that is in the next slide. So let's understand the context of the same. So from time to time, BIS used to introduce various certification schemes to regulate different set of products. In past, there are various exclusive certification schemes launched by BIS. Some of them are like Scheme 1 for ISI mark certification scheme, Scheme 2 for majorly for electronics and IT goods, Scheme 4 for like transformers or retrorefractive devices, Scheme 9 recently being launched by Prime Minister Modi for milk and milk-based products, hallmarking scheme we all know for the jewelers registration. Similarly, with the same understanding, BIS introduced a new scheme called Scheme 10 on 16th March 2022. Under the Scheme 10, manufacturers will be granted for license for conformity of goods and articles or products. As of now, 8 products are covered under the said scheme. Primarily, the mandatory implementation date of all such notified products are 10th May 2024. However, few products under IS 60947 Part 2 will get implemented in a phased manner where the last implementation date will be 10th May 2027. Now, the question arises, who will be the applicant for such schemes? So the question answer is applicants will be the OEM, original equipment manufacturer, who is actually manufacturing the goods. Only they are liable to apply for such certifications. And the usual validity period for the same is minimum 3 years and maximum 6 years. That can be based on the number of years certification fee has to be made to the bureau. Can you go next, please? Now, let's also understand the journey of switch gears and control gears. So previously, or I would say in the beginning, low voltage switch gears and control gears were covered under the ISI mark certification scheme. Then Ministry of Heavy Industries and Public Enterprises through a notification decided that on 11th November 2020, they shifted the low voltage switchgear and control gear products under the ISI mark certifications from the ISI mark certification scheme to the compulsory registration scheme, that is scheme 2. Again, a follow-up circular has been released by Ministry of Heavy Industries, and they shifted the low voltage switchgear and control gear products from scheme 2 to a fresh new scheme which is formulated by BIS called scheme 10. And under that scheme 10, basically three set of provisions has been made. One is license for the conformity of goods and articles or products. This provision is pretty much open. Second is demonstration of conformity of management system. This provision has not yet opened, but yes, such flexibilities are there in the scheme, and maybe in due course of time, this should be opened for the public. Third is for certificate of conformity. This is exclusively for those manufacturers or those impacted entities who wants to produce such low voltage switchgears for a limited period and in a limited quantity. There they can go for certificate of conformity. Here they cannot use the standard mark given by the bureau. However, they can produce those goods in certain quantity for a certain period of time. This provision has also not yet opened. We can expect this to be opened in due course of time. Can you go next, please? Now, coming to the portal where such applicants or the impacted applicants or entities have to make the application. So as of now, BIS stated in their notifications that they are in the process of formulating a new dedicated portal for filing application under Scheme 10, which is under development as of now. So as a temporary arrangement, what they did, the existing Manak online portal, which is for the Scheme 1 registrations, that is ISI registration for domestic manufacturers, there all the impacted low voltage switchgear manufacturers who are in the country within in country, they can file the registration through Manak online. When it comes to the foreign manufacturers who wish to apply for under Scheme 10, they still have to go with the hard copy registration as they used to do it under ISI mark certification scheme. Next, please. Now, these are the few products which are covered under the low voltage switchgear and control gears electrical equipment quality control order. So these are the 8 products. Circuit breaker is one of them, where there are certain line of items which is going to be mandatory in phased manner, and the last implementation date will be started from 10th May 2024 to 10th May 2027. The same we can see in the next slide. Go next, please. So these are the few variations when it comes to the circuit breaker. Circuit breaker basis on the selectivity, it can be of category A, it can be of category B. Basis on the end use, it can be for fixed or movable basis on the Connections may be single phase, three phase, basis on the pole, a single pole or multiple poles. So these are the categories which have been notified and they will be implemented in a phased manner. Further, my other panel members will take this topic in a deep dive manner. Next, please. Now let's understand a high-level procedure for grant of license. As already stated, that under the scheme, manufacturer is the applicant who is actually manufacturing the goods. None others can act as an applicant, whether it is an importer, brand owner, design owner. They cannot act as an applicant. They can, their brands can be added under the license, but they cannot be the applicant. And the license, we all know, will be granted to a combination of factory name, factory location, and the Indian standard. And there are majorly 6 steps to process any grant of application. One is the application preparations. Obviously, we have to make an application in the form 1 as prescribed by the bureau. The form 1 has to be clubbed with the whether in-house testing laboratory, or if the manufacturer does not have the complete facility when it comes to the in-house testing laboratory, they can do a subcontracting with any of the impaneled laboratory, and the same evidence has also to be enclosed. Aside to that, few of the manufacturing facilities evidence has to be enclosed, like whether how many quality control people are there, whether they have a complete testing facility, manufacturing facility, all the calibration certificates, they have, whether they have a warehouse, if yes, open warehouse, shaded warehouse, all those evidences has to be clubbed along with the form 1 and the test report, and then application filing has to be made. If it comes to domestic factory, the application has to be made through existing Manak online portal. If it comes to the foreign factory, application has to be made to the bureau in hard copy, as similar to ISI mark certification scheme or foreign manufacturer certification scheme. Once the application will be placed in records, applicant will get an acknowledgement number basis which applicant can further communicate to the bureau for further proceedings. As a next step, in initial 15-20 days, BIS concerned officer will scrutinize the application, and if there will be any major gaps, the same will be communicated to the applicant through appropriate medium. It can be over the portal or it can be through email communication. Once all the major gaps will be rectified by the applicant, then a mutual agreed date can be decided to make a factory inspection. The factory inspection as a detailed topic I have covered in my subsequent slides. So I shall cover what detailings are involved in the factory inspection. Once the inspection will successfully done or in that inspection process only, officer will pick few samples for independent testing in the BISM panel laboratory. If the results gets passed with respect to the testing of the products, then bureau grants the license. This whole process usually takes 60 to 70 days when it comes to granting of license in scheme 10. Can we go to next, please? These are few additional requirements for foreign manufacturers. As I already stated in my previous slide, that application must be submitted in hard copy. By default, all foreign manufacturers will be considered as large scale. We all know in India, factories categorization on micro, small, medium, and large enterprises. So by default, all foreign manufacturers will be treated as large scale, and accordingly, the fee has to be made to the bureau. And to file the application in India for Scheme 10, any foreign manufacturer must nominate an Indian representative as per the scheme, and foreign manufacturers must provide few additional documents as well. That is like agreement for the license duly signed by the applicant as well as the AIR, authorized Indian representative, a indemnity bond for the license, and third is the performance bank guarantee of US dollars 10,000 has to be made. This is to be taken especially to cater any unwanted situation. Let's say if because of some XYZ reasons any mishap happens in India because of your products or the manufacturer's products, so same amount can be utilized to control that situation. Next, please. Now, question comes, which lab can test products for Scheme 10? So BIS has clearly stated three options there. One is in-house test report of the manufacturer, which is one of the mandatory requirements as well, that to file the application, factory must have the in-house testing laboratory. There are few shortfalls which can be outsourced through BIS impanel laboratory. That provision is there, but certain mandatory test is expected to be available in the factory premises. There are some exceptions when it comes to MSME, local or domestic factories, which we can take it up separately. Second option is lab established, maintained or recognized by the Bureau. So any third party lab can be taken who has the scope for testing such products like UL Solutions. Third is the government impaneled laboratory. So any government laboratory can be chosen who have the scope for such certifications or such testings. There is one more point here with terms of the validity. Validity, as already mentioned, the minimum validity will be 3 years, maximum will be 6 years. This will be decided by the applicant, and accordingly, the fee will be multiplied in the same proportion. It is like 25,000 Indian rupees per year if you want to extend from 3 years to 4 years, or subsequently from 4 years to 5 years or 6 years. So in the same proportion, fee will be calculated. I have kept a separate slide for fee calculation or fee understanding as well, where we will deal in detail. For making the renewal, any applicant has to make application 2 months, 3 months early before the expiry of the license, and accordingly, applicant can file the application to the bureau to get the license renewed. Next, please. So, for everybody's understanding, these are various schemes which is run by BIS. I have tried to list few of them and majorly made a comparison table for everybody's understanding what are the similarities and what are the differences between three schemes. So one is Scheme 1, which is ISI mark certification scheme. Scheme 2, majorly for the electronics and IT goods, where which is administered by majorly Ministry of Electronics and IT. Scheme 10, we all can see what are the product categories covered. Scheme 1 majorly talks about all domestic and industrial goods except electronics and IT goods. Scheme 2 is for majorly for electronics and IT goods. Scheme 10 is for low voltage switchgear and control gears. If it comes to on-site factory audit, so Scheme 1 and Scheme 10 is those cases where factory audit is required. When it comes to Scheme 2, it is self-declaration scheme. There is no factory audit required. Applicant has to produce a test report along with the application, and basis which Bureau process the application. In-country testing is required in all three of the schemes. We cannot produce any of the test reports outside the country, and same cannot be the basis which Bureau can process your application or grant the license. Effective reason, we all know India is the effective reason where all these schemes will be implemented. In second last row, you can find the timeline. So respective schemes have respective timelines. Let's say in Scheme 1, foreign manufacturers used to take 5 to 6 months. Domestic manufacturers used to take 1 to 2 months. Scheme 2 majorly covers 1.5 months to 2 months. Scheme 10 majorly talks about 60 to 90 days or 2 to 3 months. And we all know who can be the applicant. It is the original manufacturer, actual manufacturer who is producing the goods. They can only be act as a manufacturer or the applicant. Next, please. Let's understand the high level process of factory audit. Let's say once the factory date will be decided by the applicant and the bureau, what type of major points to be reviewed by the officer, designated officer in the factory premises. So basically, whatever documents applicant has submitted to the bureau, same will be physically checked and verified whether those facilities, those infrastructure, those setups are there or not. So it is like during the inspection, manufacturing capability, how many units you are producing in a day, in a month, in a year, what type of equipment setup you have, what quality control techniques you are maintaining in the factory. Is it as per the Indian standard or some other global standard? If there are any global standard, is it allowed as per the Indian standard or not? So such things will be duly checked and verified. Testing facilities and capabilities are verified by the officer in the form of witness testing, where the officer visits the in-house testing laboratory of the applicant and asks the quality control people to verify certain tests to ensure they are well versed with the test designated by the bureau in the respective Indian standard. Technical skills will be verified, the qualification of the quality control people will be verified, and there are few other necessary parameters. Location map will be verified. What is the distance from the nearest railway station, nearest airport, nearest bus stop? Everything will be checked and verified. Once officer gets satisfied with all these inspections, then they pick few samples for independent testing, and then same is duly checked, sealed and signed and keep it there, and inform the applicant to send it to any of the laboratory which is designated or identified by the audit officers for independent testing. Once the result of the independent test laboratory gets passed, basis which the grant of registration will be issued. After getting the grant of registrations, there are few guidelines for use the standard mark. So applicant is expected to use the standard mark with a license number like L followed by the digits comprising of the license number. Next, please. This is the fee structure. We all can see the amounts mentioned here is in Indian rupees. Application fee for grant of licenses like 2000. One is the 1000 is the application fee. Another 1000 is the processing fee. Certification fee for grant of license or renewal of licenses Indian rupees 25,000 per year. Review of technical file is like Indian rupees 20,000 per technical file review. The inspection fee is 20,000 per man day, and the bureau clearly stated in their circulars, when it comes to domestic factory audit, the normal number of days will be 1 to 2 days, and when it comes to foreign factory audit, it may vary from 2 working days to 3 working days depending on the grades and the number of items there for inspection. Sample procurement charges and testing charges will be on actuals, and accordingly the applicant has to make those payments to the respective parties. Next, please. So I think that's all from my side. Now I would like to hand it over to our moderator, Ms. Ankita Rai, for further proceedings. Thank you, everyone. Now my other panel members will take it up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gaurav. We really appreciate your valuable insights. Dear participants, I will reiterate myself because we want to make this session as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the Q&A section and we will take them up. Following, we have Mr. Varghese Joy. Sir, you have the stage. Thank you.
Good morning to all of you. Am I audible? Can you just give me a feedback? Okay. Mr. Gaurav has already covered in detail the various procedures for certification, the application, the product details, etc. Now let us try to understand some other aspects of the certifications. In this program, in this session, I am trying to cover the different type of certification from BIS in a different way, mandatory certifications and why it is issued, what is the reason for issuing it, what is the electrical equipment quality control order and what is its implications, the various products covered under this quality control order, and what is the basis of having a certification scheme. How do you design a certification scheme, and the requirements or guidelines given by ISO 17065, the marking requirements or its implications on various products, complaints handling sessions by BIS, and suspension and cancellation by BIS. Next. Basically, there are two types of certifications by BIS, the voluntary certification and the mandatory certifications. In voluntary certification, it is not mandatory or compulsory to obtain a BIS license to produce and market the products in India. There are more than 700 products covered under the voluntary certification, covering all types of products in India. Whereas mandatory certification mandates that all products manufactured in India or abroad and coming to India should be under a valid license. And these products should carry the standard mark for storing, selling, or even the manufacturing people who are manufacturing this. So mandatory certification is applicable for the various quality control orders issued by Government of India. You can go to the next. In fact, the compulsory certification scheme under Scheme 10 or Scheme X has been issued by BIS for the first time. So, so this Scheme X right now actually is applicable exclusively for switchgear products. So maybe that's the reason I think we do not have the IS number on the standard mark also. You can see it later on. Why do we have mandatory certification? Why do we specify, or why do we issue the quality control orders? There are various reasons by which the mandatory certification is issued. One is protection of human safety. For example, actually, we look at the domestic electrical equipments or food products. These are covered under the compulsory certification for the reasons that the human safety has to be ensured. Well, next one is animal or plant health. We can see the insecticides or pesticides which have been brought under the compulsory certifications. And even animal feeds have been brought under the compulsory certification. Maybe this is one of the considerations in that. Safety of the environment. Any product, any process which impact the environment will also be considered while issuing the mandatory certification. For example, many of the products where efficiency is a parameter which can impact the natural resources would be a consideration for issuing a mandatory certification. Next, prevention of unfair trade practices. Previous slide, please. Where legal metrology comes into force, actually, most of the products actually we have the legal metrology requirements like cement and scale tapes. These are the consideration for issuing the mandatory certification. Apart from that, we have the national security and public interest. I can tell you the examples of protective textiles, which is used for the defense, as well as the safe vault, which is being used by the public, could also be considered that these have been issued under the public interest and national security. Next slide. What is the meaning of this particular quality control order, electrical equipment quality control order? Any order issued by Government of India, and this order has been issued by the Department of Heavy Industry under the Ministry of Heavy Industry on 16th March 2023, covers 8 products majorly, and there are other products which is being mandated over a period of time. This is with effect from 10th May 2024. This means that any products being sold in India or manufactured in or outside, which is imported to India, shall be under a valid license. And these products definitely should be carrying a certification or standard mark. Why we are having this seminar is important, that any product which are in the transit and which is landed here on 10th May without the certification can be withheld, and it will be illegal. So that's why it's necessary that people who are manufacturing the original equipment manufacturer should go for the license, the certification from the bureau well in advance, so that you do not have any trouble in exporting these products to India. Basically, it covers switches, disconnectors, switch gears, motor starters, control gears, and emergency controls. Next slide. I think the detailed discussion on the products which are going to come later on in the UL presentation. But for products 2, 3, and 6, I think there are some specific additional requirement from BIS. So presently, the system, the login system which is used by the BIS website may not be able to use these standards with additional requirements, for which I think a separate login system and a separate module is being designed by BIS. I hope it will be implemented very soon from BIS. So next slide. These are the other products which are being considered for mandatory certification over a period of 2 years. Next. What is the basis of certification schemes? All over the world, there are various types of certification scheme being operated by different countries and different bodies. Third-party certification, second-party certification, first-party certification, type approvals, lot inspections, export inspections, various type of certification schemes. But if any certification scheme has to be accepted to any other country or any other platform, then it has to be under as per the international guidelines. International guidelines specified in 17067 and 17065 gives you an idea of how a certification scheme can be designed. Fundamentally, we are going to talk about the basic requirements which are specified in 17065, and these requirements have to be there in formulating a certification scheme. We will try to see what is the 17065 requirements and how it has been incorporated into the scheme Scheme X by Bureau of Indian Standards. There are basically 6 aspects, major aspects to be considered, and I am going to talk about each of these aspects. Next one. The first one is selection. Selection is nothing but there are 3 aspects. One, describing your products in detail, that the planning for the certification. This is nothing but selection is nothing but planning for certification. The product details have to be specified in advance clearly, and then the applicable standard, what standard, and plus the additional requirements against which the certification is to be obtained, the sampling plan plus the quality plan with respect to the raw materials in process final inspections have to be in detail, and the manufacturing process, testing equipment details, and manufacturing equipments available. This is the basic form of documentation which comes to the BIS, and additional requirements, additional informations in the form of annexures are the raw materials, manufacturing process, factory testing, factory test report, whatever facility they have, independent test report, if it is available with them, and the quality plan, which includes raw materials, in process, final inspections, incoming inspections, etc. And the manufacturing process, the flow chart, and instruction for maintenance, use, and disposal. Any other requirements which is specifically applicable for the product. So basically, the documentation will give you an idea of the picture, the applicable standard, the requirements, not only the standard, if an additional requirement is applicable, that also has to be stated, plus the description and in detail the type and variety or the size for which you are seeking for certification, and the address from which you are seeking certification, the brand name, model number, serial number, all this have to be stated in advance in the application form. Next one. In the determination, the ISO standard 17065 gives you requirements with respect to the test results, that the factory test reports or independent test reports, which shows conformity to the requirements, and then the verification of the document which have been submitted to the BIS or any certification body. Apart from that, the desk review of your drawings and designs. So all this form the first part, that is the application which have been submitted along with the annexures will be verified, plus the test report which have been submitted to BIS showing conformity will also be verified. And all this will form a technical file, and the application put together will be completed within 60 days. And apart from this, during this period, it is necessary that a site visit has to be done by BIS. During the site visit, they will verify the manufacturing process, the process controls, the testing equipments, and the competence of the people. Basically, during the site visit, it is envisaged that the inspection body will verify the capability and the competence of the organization. Capability in respect of the people available who can carry out the test with respect to the standard, and the capability of the manufacturing process and the equipment, which will ensure that continuously the product will conform to the requirements. So these aspects, the one is the desk review of the applications plus the on-site review of your company will give you two set of documents to the BIS. Next. Verifying this, that the technical file, the application, the test report, and the on-site report is the third aspect of review. And in review, if these ensure that compliance to the requirement of the standard and shows that the conformity to the product and ensure that the company has got the capability and competence in manufacturing continuously products conforming to the relevant Indian standard, and the review is complete. Then it goes to the decision. Next one. In decision, that the decision is made by Bureau that whether to give a license or not to give a license. In case a license is given, a license is awarded to the company, and if a license is not given, that the findings and the reason for not awarding the certificate will be communicated to the organization, and the corrective actions have to be taken. There is no question of not getting the certification at all. You take the corrective actions and offer to the certification body, and it will be verified, and you get the certification. So this is the decision part. The decision is taken whether we should give a grant of license or a certificate of conformity. You must keep in mind the Scheme 10, as issued by the Bureau of Indian Standard, can be used for various other types of product. Presently, it is being envisaged that we will use it only for electrical equipments. So if it is possible that there is a product which is in the liquid form, there is no possibility that it can be marked. So in that case, I think either the cover or they may say the certificate of conformity can be there on the certificates issued for the products which is covered in certification in the Scheme X. So Scheme X, not necessarily for the electrical equipments, it can also be applied for any other groups of products which may be notified later on. This Scheme X is one of the type of certification scheme which have been put under the BIS regulations. Next. Right now, it has been clarified BIS will only be giving the license for electrical equipments being manufactured. So there will not be any certificate of conformity at present. And maybe if it is decided later on, I think then we will get to know that later on. Maybe more guidelines are expected from Bureau of Indian Standard, and the website also going to be modified exclusively for this product. So whatever be the situation, whether it is a certificate of conformity or a license, both will indicate for the license granted to which premises, and the address, the details of the product for which the license has been granted, as well as the IS number or the requirements against which the license has been granted. So this will come under the attestation. And next is surveillance. Next. See, BIS, this as per ISO 17065 says there has to be a surveillance mechanism under this. And surveillance mechanism can be either for the factory, product, and market. So BIS can institute a surveillance mechanism either from the market by taking the product and getting it tested, or they can even get a feedback from the buyers or customers, and then that can form a surveillance mechanism. They can also have a surprise mechanism or surprise visit to the factory to check whether all that procedures which have been given to them and the conditions of license have been complied with can be verified in a surprise visit. So a surveillance mechanism can include either of these or a combination of all this. Taking a product, either informed or not informed, taking a product from the market, taking feedback from the market or agents or the users, taking a visit to the factory and verifying compliance to the requirements specified by BIS. So this is a surveillance mechanism. Next. See, in the, marking of a product is very, very important, because if the mark is applied wrongly, then it can also lead to wrong impression in the market, as well as it can lead to the cancellation of license. So the standard mark is specified by BIS, and it will be given to you along with the license. This standard mark can be used either in black and white or in color specified by the BIS. The same color has to be used if it is used in color. And if it is in black and white, or the dimensional changes can be made only, or expansion, or enlargement, or reduction only is possible, and you cannot change the dimensions, which proportionate dimensions have to be maintained exclusively. Every product, actually, I feel that all these products covered under the mandatory certification now can apply the standard mark on the labels. There will not be any issue on that, and the mark should be visible and very clear with the license number below it. Standard mark cannot be applied to any product or variety which is not covered under the license, and if it is covered and marked, then it will become illegal. It can lead to cancellation of license and legal complications. The product details should also be there on the marking: type, variety, identification number to trace the manufacturing date or week of manufacturing, brand name, trademark, and the complete address of the manufacturing. These information shall be marked on the product or the packaging, or both contained in a label attached to the product. That would be specified exclusively for each of the product in the scheme of testing. Next. Next. In the case of certificate of conformity, I have told you that certificate of conformity can also be issued under the scheme 10. And in that case, the license number has to be marked on certificate of conformity with the license number, and copy of the test certificate should accompany with the product or the batch of products. Any additional labeling marking requirements of the usage of standard mark under the license will be specified by the BIS with respect to separate each individual product guidelines, which will be maybe it will be issued very soon by BIS. Next. Complaints can come from consumers. Complaints can come from governments. Complaints can come from the laboratory. Complaints can come from anywhere. So in that case, BIS normally, and the ISO standards on complaint investigation also tells that the investigation has to be carried out at both the places where the complaint has originated, to see whether it's a genuine complaint, and also it to be investigated with respect to the serial number and the type and variety at the manufacturer's place or the licensee end. And you should establish that the complaint is genuine. If the complaint is genuine, further actions are taken. If the conformity, to ensure the conformity of the product, BIS on receipt of a complaint can also draw a sample from the market and get it tested, and may direct the licensee to redress or replace the product for which the defective products have been given. And it can also lead to suspension of marking if the conformity is not maintained for the product which have been supplied to the market. And if there is an issue of fraudulent marking or false information to the BIS, license can also be suspended temporarily. And if the corrective actions are not satisfactory, or the explanation given by the factory is not satisfactory, the license can be further cancelled also. Next. Cancellation is possible actually on two reasons. One, if the license is already under suspension and it exceeds more than 6 months, then the license will come up for cancellation, and try to see whether relevant actions have not been taken by the party to satisfaction of the bureau, and then suspension cannot be extended, then cancellation may be the only way out. Second, in case there's a misuse of license for varieties for which it's not covered in the license, the products have been marked or certificate of conformity has not been used properly, improperly, or illegally, then also the license will be cancelled with a notice to the client by the Bureau of Indian Standards. Finally, next one. The very short comparison between Scheme 1 and Scheme 10. Scheme 1, I think, has been already explained by Mr. Gaurav in detail. Most of the products which are covered under the voluntary certification scheme, we cover under the Scheme 1, where normally a visit is carried out to the factory and a sample is drawn from the factory for testing. That is the only difference which comes to Scheme 10. If the test report available with the factory can also be used in the case of Scheme 10 for giving the certificate of conformity and license. That's one difference actually between Scheme 1 and Scheme 10. And Scheme 1 is basically for any of the Indian standards. Scheme 10 is also for the standards formulated by BIS, but it can also include the management system certification also. If a person would like to get management system certification along with your license under Scheme 10, the provision is already there, and management system certification is also operated by BIS. Whether they will do it now or later, I think, but the provision has been made under the Scheme 10. And certificate of conformity also can be issued for some products which are not continuous, maybe products which are being manufactured and supplied in a one particular time and not throughout the year. So BIS can consider for issuing the certificate of conformity. But exact considerations of which type of certification and whether it is a certificate of conformity or certificate or license or including management system will vary for manufacturer to manufacturer and product to product. Factory assessment, which I told you that the technical file has to be submitted, which includes nothing but the entire plan of certification, which includes the raw material. In detail, it has been already mentioned. Normally, I think the certification will be valid for the first 3 years, and later on the renewal can be taken up. If the performance is satisfactory, it could be extended for 6 years. If the performance is not satisfactory, then BIS BIS got the prerogative to decide up to how many years it should be renewed. So, and I understand that the low voltage switchgear compulsory certification is right now being implemented for safety of machinery and electrical equipment certification. The details would be more details will be issued by BIS in very soon. So surveillance remains same for both Scheme 1 and Scheme 10. It is either from the factory or market and a combination of both. Next. I think this is the last one, and thanks a lot. If any questions are there, we can take up in the question answer session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Varghese, for taking out time and contributing to the effectiveness of this webinar. We are beyond grateful. Following, we have Mr. Madhusudan Shetty. Mr. Shetty, you have the stage. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Ankita, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. So today I'm here to speak about some of the aspects on the QTO requirements that has come for low voltage switchgear product categories. So I'll be touch basing on the standard and the product information on these, and especially implementation dates on 60947 series products categories. Then series guidelines for this standard, which has been issued already from the BIS and the ministry. And I'll be touch basing on the tests involved in certifications, especially for 60947 Part 2 for breaker standard. And I'll be updating on the testing facilities what we have presently from UL Solutions, and also ending up with the global market access solutions what we offer to customers from UL. Next slide, please. Yeah, next one, please. Yeah, skip this slide. So next one, please. Yeah, so as said, as per QCO, the guidelines for 60947 series, So the complete product standard is available for getting the product certified. So basically the 60947 part 2 category covers molded case circuit breakers and air circuit breakers. And part 3 standard covers switches, disconnectors and switch fuse units. And part 4 section 1 covers contactors and motor controllers. And part 4 section 2 covers the semiconductor controllers and starters. And whereas part 4 and section 3 covers the same semiconductor motor controllers and contactors for non-motor applications. Yeah, next slide, please. And for part 5, section 1 covers the products are under auxiliary contacts, limit switches, etc. And for part 5, section 2, it covers proximity switches, sensors, and the nearby products under this category. And for part 5, section 5, it covers all the emergency stop switches and push buttons for the emergency stoppages. So with these are the categories that will be covered under QCO requirement. And with UL to suffice the requirement to the customers, we are already upgraded the lab and also accredited from BIS and NABL to support all the manufacturers. So on this, presently we are working to add part 5, section 5 under BIS scope until enable is completed. And for part 5, section 2, we are working with the lab for the upgradation. So the beginning of April, we'll start working for the accreditations with NABL and BIS. So with other standards, which covers from 60947 part 2 till part 5, section 1, it is already been covered with NABL and BIS, and the labs are up to start working with customers for all the testing requirements. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, just to heads up on the implementation dates, specifically for 60947 part 2, that is for molded case and air circuit breakers. So here the dates are been bifurcated based on the labs availability. So here for May 10, 2024, any products that are up to 630 amps and up to 440 volt AC, the deadline is May 10th, 2024. It is excluding EMC testings, and any range that falls under this category with the products that falls under EMC, only for EMC portion, the deadline is till 2026 May. And similarly for category A, any ratings above 630 amps and up to 440 volts, the deadline excluding EMC is May 2025. And any product categories for this range with EMC, this is till 2026 May. And same way for category B products up to 2000 amps, 440 volts, the deadline for the products to be tested without EMC is May 2025, and including EMC, it is 2026. And for rest of the other major categories, the ratings above 440 volts, and also for the category P products, predominantly it is with respect to May 2026, followed by 2027. So this is the overall the deadline for the implementation on the molded case circuit breakers and for air circuit breakers, which has to be aligned, and this deadline will be mandated already from BIS, and this needs to be looked in by all the manufacturers for getting their products tested and having the markings on the product. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, coming back to the series guidelines available for the breakers category on 60947 series. So the series guidelines is already available for all the manufacturers. So the basic guidelines are available from the standard on how to select the samples, what is the criteria for selecting the samples. And also there is an additional guidelines that has come from ministry on clubbing the complete range of products that are going to certify within a complete range of models that will be getting tested. So based on the requirement that is coming up, considering all the factors on the complete range of current, voltage. So there is a guideline available that I'll brief you in the coming slide. So to start with, for the series guidelines, first of all, the manufacturers has to confirm the frame sizes with respect to that particular series. So frame size basically consists of your the maximum size within the breaker range. So if you have a breaker range from, for example, from 6 to 63 ampere, and you have the other frame size from 80 to 125 ampere. So based on the physical dimension and the internal current carrying parts, so you have to declare those frame sizes in detail, so that based on that frame sizes, the samples will be selected according to the requirements coming up from the series guidelines. The next slide, please. Yeah. So basically, breakers are classified into different categories based on the end application and the projections coming up on the requirements. So basically, it is classified under category A and category B, and also based on the interrupting medium, it may be a air, vacuum, or a gas break. So you have to differentiate those with respect to the requirements. Then method of installation on fixed type, plug-in type, or a withdrawal type. And also based on the operating mechanism, whether it is an independent manual or a dependent power or with a motor operated. And also based on the design and construction type, whether it is an open type or a closed type, which is nothing but a molded type. And also for suitability of isolation, whether it is suitable for isolation or non-suitable for isolation. And on maintenance part, whether it is maintainable or it is not maintainable. And also based on nature of supply, whether it is a single phase, 3-phase, or it is a DC type application. And based on number of poles, whether it is a single pole to 4 pole, the variants. And also based on the features inside how the breaker operates, whether it may be thermal, magnetic, or electromagnetic, all the combinations you need to declare. And also at the end, you need to declare on the ingress protection if you are using your breakers with any of the enclosures. So basically, with all these constituents for a separation of the frame sizes, and based on these declarations, the sample sizes will be selected and the number of tests will be done on the products. And that is where the guidelines comes, and these are the basic initial declarations has to come from manufacturers during the time of submission. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, as I was specifically stressing upon the frame sizes and the various guidelines that is coming up. So if customer wanted to declare a specific construction break within that frame size, so there is a guidelines from standard and also from the QCO that has been given. For example, if your product having a similar material, finish, and dimension of the internal carrying parts, excluding the variations allowed below, based on the dimensions of the terminals. In case of thermal and magnetic, the design should be same. You can have the increase or decrease in the width or the thickness of the material that is allowed, and also secondary winding of the transformers. Plus the other cases, like if you are doing a single pole with a similar construction and you are multiplying it with a double pole, 3-pole, or 4-pole. So these are the variations allowed. And with respect to this, if all these constructions are similar, then you can declare that particular range as a single construction break. And also coming back to the next is on the size, material, and configuration, the method of attaching your main contacts. So the design should be of the same. If there is any variation within this, so this will be considered as a separate construction that you have to declare this as a additional construction or a second construction. And also your integral manual operating mechanism should be same. The materials and the physical characteristics should remain same. If there is any deviation or if there is any additional features that is getting added, then you have to bifurcate that and declare that as an additional construction. And your molding and insulating materials should be of same. For each rating, you cannot use a different molding materials. So basically it is on the plastic part. So your complete range should have an single plastic part. If there is a different plastic parts, then you should treat that as an different constructions and you need to include in your construction phase. And also the principle of operation, materials, and construction of arc extinguishing devices, it must be same and it must be of same design. If there is any changes, if you see in between within the construction, then you need to treat those as a separate constructions to consider for test plans. And also your overcurrent tripping devices and the magnetic tripping devices, the construction should be same. If within the range, if you are bifurcating or any changes in the design on this part will be treated as additional construction, and you need to clearly bifurcate these changes and make the constructions samples or the ranges separately done for the testing and the other requirements. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah. And coming back to the list of tests that is coming from the standard for this category. So as per table 9, there is a list of tests that has been shared for meeting the construction requirements on these products. So basically they are covered with respect to the test sequences, test sequence 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And basically test sequences, one speaks about in general testings on the product. Basically it covers all the tripping characteristics, dielectric properties, temperature rise, operational performance on the product, followed by the post verifications of temperature rise and the dielectric. Whereas the other sequences from sequence 2 to sequence 6, it speaks about the short circuit test that is going to happen on the breaker and followed by all the post tests for the products. So there are various sequences that has been given in the standard. Based on the declaration on the product, some of the sequences will not be applicable because that based on the category what you declare for the products. So okay, whether it is category A or B. So in the next slide, I'll just give you a brief view on the sequences that are going to be removed from these sequences based on your declarations. And with respect to these sequences, test has to be conducted. And based on this acceptability of results, the product can be covered under that particular ranges. So any construction break you declare, it has to undergo the sequences of test. And for each sequences, standard allows to use different products, and it does not call to use a single product for all the sequences. So for sequence 1, you can use a separate sample. For sequence 2, you can use a separate samples. So the standard allows to use because there are certain critical tests that happens, especially on short circuit and electrical endurance, where after the test for long service, the breaker may not be used back. So to know the design and the criteria that is coming from the product, so sequences can be done on different samples, and yeah, criteria have to met based on the end result from the particular testings. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, as said in table 9A, based on the declaration, whether it is for selectivity category A for breakers or for selectivity category B. So the standard is giving the clear guidelines with respect to the sequences, what you're going to declare. For example, if your short circuit ratings for ICU, ICS, and ICW, in some cases, some of the declarations, the rating remains same. In some of the declarations, the ratings will vary based on the design of the product. So based on that, from table 9A, we can see the list of tests that is applicable, and also the standard clearly tells that some of the tests are not applicable because the declaration based on those categories of ratings coming from the manufacturers will suffice with the testing that we are going to do with other sequences. So with that, some of the sequences that can be waived off, especially for sequence 4 and 5. If you see majority of the cases, these tests are not applicable because when category B been declared for a breakers, and if it is having the same ratings with category A ratings of short circuit, then majority of these tests can be waived off based on the standard requirements. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, and also standard gives a clear guidelines on how to select the samples and what is the base construction and the poles to be selected. So from table 9 and 9A references, we have a program that can be selected based on the manufacturer's declarations. So either we can look from program 1 or program 2. Program 1 speaks about selecting the samples from the bigger range of breakers, especially from 3-pole range of breakers. If we test this category of breakers, 3-pole as a reference with one construction, and rest of the other poles, for example, if manufacturer is declaring they have a range from pole 1 to pole 4, and in that they wanted to pick pole 3 as a reference poles for testing. So standard gives a reference where programs 1 can be selected, where 3 poles testing will be done based on the requirement, and additional test for the other poles for single pole, 2-pole, and 4-pole will be additionally carried out. And also, if there is a series of range which have a multiple construction breaks within the range, then standards also allows us like selecting one construction as a maximum range, which will fit in within the range of products for majority of the products coverage, and the other constructions which fall under the very next nearby constructions for construction 2 and 3, we can do only 3-pole testing, and the rest all can be waived off. And add on to that, since you are selecting 3-pole in program 1, so you need to do additional testings for 4-pole. So with that, we will be covering the complete range. So that speaks about the requirement from program 1. Similar way, if the customer want to select the samples to be tested from 4-pole range, and they wanted to cover the complete series. Then 4-pole construction 1 can be taken as a reference testing, and any additional test that request from the standard for single pole, 2-pole, and 3-pole can be additionally done. And the rest of the series with only 4-pole testing will be added on to the complete series. So with this, customer has a leverage to select whether program 1 can be chosen or program 2 can be chosen. So based on the declaration from customer, the sample selection from this table can be looked in for selection of the programs. And also when we select the testing for additional testing, so standard also allows to refer to table 9B and 9C for selecting the test and also the number of samples from that particular sequences. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, and standard also give references from table 10 where based on the declaration, for example, if a range has a multiple voltages within the particular range, and also the breakers are being marked with terminals and without terminals, and also as said based on the number of poles and also the current settings on the breaker. So normally some of the breakers will have the flexible settings where we can select the current ratings from minimum range to maximum range. So based on all this declaration, table 10 gives us a reference like for what number of samples to be picked for each sequences. For example, in sequence 1, if the product having a multiple voltages and also having a multiple currents, it give a reference like what is the selection of voltage to be taken and what is the selection of current to be taken to perform this sequence 1. So in this case, any number of declaration you do, we need to pick one sample from the standard and test to be carried out that will be covering the complete range. And similarly for sequence 2, 3 and other sequences, again the standard is giving a reference table here from table 10. So we have to pick based on the declaration from the manufacturers, whether it is a multiple voltage rated breaker or whether it is a terminal marked or unmarked or whether it is a multiple settings breaker. So based on this table selection, we can arrive at doing a sample plan for the complete sequences for the set of construction breaks that are going to be looked in for testing. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, add on to that, as I said before, when a declaration comes from customer for a variety of product features on the product, so basically we don't test all the features and all the requirements that has been declared. So basically in the base model, when a product is tested covering that as a base model and that will cover the complete construction. So there is a guidelines coming up from the QCO if the manufacturers want to add any additional features with the base models that is tested. So here is a reference table. So for example, if a breaker is not suitable for isolation, and later if customer wanted to add this range to their complete portfolio, so which is already tested with suitability of isolation system. So in this case, there is no testing involved, provided all the constructions and other requirements are met with the previous construction. And with the documentation updation, the license can be added. So similar way, there are different variants here. So again, there will be multiple trip units on breakers where once we do reference testing on one of the highest coverage settings, then the lower coverage settings of these multiple settings can be added without any testing. Then similar way for plugin type and withdrawal type. So if we are covering a complexity variant in the base construction, so these additional constructions can be added without any testings with the documentation. And similar way for 1-pole, 2-pole and 3-pole variants. Suppose today the coverage was only for 4-pole or a 3-pole plus neutral variant. And tomorrow same construction without any changes if manufacturers want to add 2-pole or a 3-pole variant in the same construction. So with the documentation review, the licenses can be updated. Similar way for accessories which wanted to add with the breakers, especially with shunt UV and the closing unit for the breakers. And also any breaker with the multiple voltage ratings. Suppose if a product been certified today with the highest voltage rating and tomorrow manufacturers want to add a lower voltage rating with the same specification without changing the product, and that can be accepted without any changes, only to upgrade the voltage. And similar way for short circuit breaking capacity. If today a product been certified with a specific short circuit breaking capacity with the upper voltage, and tomorrow the same product to be upgraded with the lower short circuit value with the same voltage that can be done without any testing with the documentation. So there are certain guidelines available in the QCO. So these are from those, and this can be referred further for adding your portfolio to increase the products within the license. Next slide, please. Yeah, and coming back to the test, the major test that covers within the scope of 60947 Part 2 for breakers are thermal tripping limits and characteristics. Basically, this test is carried out on the breakers based on the declaration. Basically, this is nothing but overload test on the products for thermal. Basically, whatever the declaration that happens from customer, so reference temperature will be maintained for the particular breaker, and breaker will be fed with the current on the settings that is coming from the standard, and the tripping time will be verified from the standard requirements. Similar way for magnetic tripping, based on the customer declaration of the magnetic setting, the current will be fed to the breakers, and breaker opening time will be measured. And there is a standard requirement that breaker has to trip within the particular trip time. So those will be measured during these tests. And next is on the dielectric properties. Basically, this test speaks about more on dielectric withstand test on different configuration of the poles and the breaker. Normally, it will be done on terminals, two terminals, breaker in off position, breaker in trip position, and with breaker on position with all poles connected together with the frame and also with grounding. And also add on to that high voltage testing, there will be impulse test carried out under sequence 1 for this test to see that when an impulse voltage is applied across the breakers for different configurations, so there should not be any spillover or a breakdown due to failure of the contacts or the failure of the live parts that testing the breakers live contacts. Then coming back to the further test on operational performance capability, basically this is nothing but the endurance test. It covers both mechanical operations and electrical operations coming from the standard. So breaker will be fed with the rated voltage and the rated current with the power factor specified from the standard, and breaker has to undergo a number of operations continuously with current and without current. And at the end, once the number of operations specified in the standards are covered, so the breaker should be in a normal use without any deformation. The mechanism should be intact, and the contact should have the complete continuity on the poles. So all these will be measured at the end of the test, which is critical for these kind of products. Next is on the temperature rise. Basically, this test is conducted on the higher rating of the breakers to ensure that complete range is falling within the purview criteria from the standard. So again, standard give a reference temperatures on the materials what you are going to use on the terminals and other parts. So based on those declaration from manufacturers, testing will be conducted, and different temperatures that measures. So standard is giving a clear guidelines on if you are using a copper material, aluminum material, or a combination of other alloys. So there is a different temperatures for each particular alloy and a material. So the temperature measured should be within the limit, and if it crosses, that will be a failure. If it is within the limit, then that can be considered as an acceptable criteria. And during temperature rise test, if the declaration comes from customer that products are enclosed or unenclosed, if it is unenclosed type, the breaker will be tested at open area. Whereas if the customer declares that it is an enclosed type, then the breaker will be tested within an enclosure. So these differences are critical during this test. So based on declaration, testing will be conducted here. Then coming back to the short circuit breaking capacity and short time withstand current. So based on the categories of declaration, especially for category A and category B. So basically for short time withstand current, breakers will fall under category B. So this is nothing but a short circuit current that will be fed to the breaker for a specific time what customer is going to declare. So during this test, the breaker should not show abnormality. There should not be any arcing from the contacts. And after the set, there should not be any contacts welding on the moving and fixed contact. And breaker should work normal with the way it was before the test. So this test has been critical because most of the time when there is a high current being fed for a withstand test, there are chances if the designs are not good or the contacts are not intact, there will be a lot of arcing, and because of arcing, there will be a lot of welding happens, and at the end, the contacts will get welded, or sometimes there will be a blast can be seen on the breakers. And coming back to the short circuit breaking capacity test, it is nothing but the short circuit test with the declaration that is coming from manufacturers that it has to undergo. So basically the rated voltage and the short circuit declared value will be fed on the breaker, and the breaker has to trip within a specified time. So this is the critical test that will be conducted on the breakers. And during this test, the breaker frames or the backend panels, which is a metal one, which are connected to the grid fuses and the ground fuses. So during the test, the observations are the breaker has to trip during the fault, and there should not be much arcing. Even if there is arcing, there should not be blow of the ground fuses uh, within the circuit, and the breaker should be working normal as new what it was installed before the test. These were the criteria that will be looked in during the testing. And that again, if the breakers are declared as enclosure type, so they will be put in the enclosure and test will be conducted. And if it is something declared as unenclosed type, and there is a standard requirement coming that we have to put a mesh which is covering the complete surface on the breaker. So the declaration has to be come from manufacturers for the dimension of these meshes, but it will be on the mesh. The breaker will be mounted, and above that the mesh will be connected, and all the ground fuses will be connected during the test. And during the observation, all the fuses should be intact which are connected to the ground. So these will be looked in, and only if the ground fuses are intact, the criteria of accepting the results are fine. If there is any blow of these fuses, this will be considered as a failure, because the product has undergone arcing, and arcing has led the current flow to the fuse, and fuse will intact will blow. So these are the criteria, the major criteria that coming up from the testing for breakers here. And also, if the breakers are declared for electronic types, then it will undergo additional EMC test based on the requirements that is coming from the standard. And adding all to all these tests, there will be some more tests that will be conducted on breakers, especially on the terminals. That is for terminal testing, normally we call as secureness and pullout. So basically, whatever the conductors and the torque declared from the manufacturers will be applied. The conductor size, normally breakers will be declared with different conductor size from minimum range to maximum range that is going to uh, put up in the field. So based on the range declared from manufacturer and the torque value, there is a secureness where the conductor will be tightened to that particular torque, and there will be a, a weight based on the standard requirement that will be put on the conductors, and the breaker terminals will be put under this test. So the breaker has to withstand for 30 minutes with this conductor and the load at particular torque, and the terminals should not move out from the terminal, and there should not be any slippages will be looked in. And also there will be followed by a pull test that will be carried out on these terminals, basically to ensure whatever the torque you have declared for particular conductor. So the standard has given a reference weight. We need to apply for 1 minute, and we need to see there is no spillover of the conductor from the terminals. So this will be looked in, because this is also a critical test. Most of the time in field, the tightening torque with the conductors on the terminals matters a lot, because if there is a loose termination on the terminals with respect to torque tightening, there are chances of breakers getting overheated, and there is chances of getting fire at the end application. Yeah, and also add on to that, on the plastic part, there will be additional glow aware test will be conducted to check the flammability of the material, and the standard giving a clear guidelines like if the fire extinguishes, and if there is a fire, then within the 30 minutes of application, we need to remove the temperature applied on the plastic part, and the fire has to extinguish within 30 seconds. And these things will be looked in and documented during the time of testing for plastic evaluations on the product for this category. Yeah, so these are the major tests that will be covered for 60947 Part 2 for breakers during the testing and certification evaluation. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, coming back to the scope of facility available at UL Solutions for this category of products. So basically, we have a short circuit lab in Bangalore with a capacity of 15 kilo amps AC to test all the braking capacity tests here. So Basically, we can go up to 690 volt AC for 10 kiloamps and 456 volt AC for 15 kiloamps, and followed by a short time instant current up to 5 kiloamps for 1 second. So any declaration under this range, we can take up the testing to complete your series. And adding on to that, to conduct the mechanical and electrical endurance setup. For electrical endurance, we have up to 1500 amps AC, which covers 440 and 760 volts range for single phase and three phase. And also at the moment, we have small facility for DC up to 60 ampere at 660 volt DC. And adding to that, for temperature and tripping characteristics, we have 2000 amps AC source for single phase and three phase, and also 5000 amp single phase source for supporting for temperature rise and tripping characteristics. And also a small portion of DC we have with up to 100 ampere DC presently. And also we are upgrading our lab presently for the DC requirements, the same 15 kiloamps till 1000 volts for DC, and the same facilities for electrical endurance that will be coming up. The lab installation are in progress. Probably by Q2 2024, the lab will be ready with DC requirements. So once the facility is up, we will be intimating to all the manufacturers to utilize the facility for your requirements. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah. So basically, most of them knows that UL is basically for UL requirements and UL standard testings and certifications. And right now, that's not the same. UL is more diversified. We do a lot of testing for different countries for different requirements. So our presence at Global, we have more than 80 plus labs across the globe. And we also serve day in, day out with different kind of customers for different kind of requirements for different kind of markets. So one of the advantages working with UL is we cover the portion of the requirement coming from customer to see what is the region or the area they are looking for the certification or testing. And we also club the requirement with the global market access. Basically, it is nothing but if we come to know that a customer is looking for a particular testing for a particular standard, and if UL has the requirement or the approaches with other country regulators outside. So we will pitch in and inform customers that you can club with many of the harmonized standard requirements with one testing you do with UL, and you will get a multiple requirements of the market on the products. For example, today, if we speak about the QCO requirements, yes, BIS has come up in India now to have a mandatory requirements for these products. So add on to that, if any customers come back to UL for doing any testing for the BIS or enable requirement, because these standards are already harmonized with IEC requirements, and also UL is one of the lab in India who is having accreditation from NABL, BIS, and CBTL for issuing IEC-CB. So we can club this requirement together with one testing. We can issue multiple certifications and reports to customer. So that saves a lot of cost to customer for not doing multiple testing when the requirement arises. And at the same time, with one testing, they will be, provided with multiple certificates where tomorrow, if they wanted to enter different markets, they can enter without any further delay or without additional costing putting on for the testings. So this is where UL is one of the unique lab where customer can get a lot of benefits working with us. And already we have done similar programs for other categories as well, wherever today we have ISA mark mandatory and wherever the standards are harmonized and wherever the standards are covered under IEC-CB as well. So we are already offering the services to customer, and still we wanted to extend it to these category of products in the coming days. Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, and as said, since we are covering the complete global market access, UL has come up with complete globe requirements, which comes whether it is a mandatory or a self-declaration, or it is a requirement from that particular regulatory agencies within the government there within that country. So everything we have covered in a single area, which country, what requirement, and what markings we can offer. So any of the customers want to look in more, maybe you can get in touch with us. We can have more interaction to look in and support you as well on this front. And as said, since UL is having a global presence, and also we are doing a lot of harmonized requirement testing for customers. So it will be benefits for all the customers to start looking and working with UL to get benefited to the max with a minimal investment and for getting the access to all the markets. Yeah. So with this, I just wanted to close my topic for today. Once again, thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Shetty, for the insightful presentation. Next up is Mr. Raman Baijal. Mr. Raman, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Ankita. So great hearing the talk from Mr. Varghese, Mr. Madhusudan, Gaurav. Very, very insightful, and happy to see all the engagement from the participants. I know you guys have lots of questions, so we will get to that. I just want to take a few minutes, talk about Vincular, and then we can get to the really exciting Q&A part of it. Next slide, please. So next slide. So we want to talk. I just want to talk about, touch base a little bit about, why Vincular, how are we qualified in this space, and what do we bring to the table? So I want to start with something that's written in the middle of the slide, because that's really the core of what we do, which is customer centricity. So we are advisors. We are one of the most reputed product compliance advisory firms in India, one of the largest as well. We have about 70 qualified compliance engineers working with us. And this is really the core that we offer, customer centricity. So we work as advisors. We don't work as, what quote unquote consultants, as you must have heard in the industry. We really work with our customers as partners, and we do what is absolutely right for them. In terms of, you can read what's written on the slide, but I'll paraphrase it, that, essentially there are three aspects to what our services include. One is your end-to-end product certification management, right? So, right from your custom clearance to project management, liaising with any of the government agencies, we do all of that. With coordination with labs. So, we partner with a lot of labs. Mr. Madhusudan is here from UL today. So that's sort of one-stop shop offering that we have. The second part of the offering that we do is around advisory, which some people also term as public advocacy. So we've been working for over 10 years, and we have good relationships in the industry. We have a very good understanding of regulations as and when they evolve. So we work with industry partners. We also work with government agencies in developing certain standards, certain protocols, and also interpreting them so that the industry and the regulator are on the same page. So that's another service offering that we do. And the third catch-all bucket, if I use that term, is a bunch of other services that we bring to the table, which really sets us apart. Things like compliance training programs, which are specifically tailored for your needs. I mean, this WebEx is an example of what we do. We also do in-person training. We can act as your extended compliance management team. So, for a lot of companies, it doesn't make sense to have in-house compliance team. We can be your partner there and take care of everything. Since we are completely focused on product management, we also have regular updates. So we keep publishing what's happening in the industry, what are new regulations, how does that impact a manufacturer or a brand. So those are sort of services and unique skills that we bring to the table. Apart from that, I mean, we are, of course, impaneled. We've impaneled a lot of very senior ex-government officials who are on our advisory board. We are members of various industry organizations like MATE, etc. Very active in MATCOF, which is taking care of all your telecom regulations and developing new ones. So we do a bunch of things around the compliance management. And at the end of the presentation, if you don't have our coordinates, we will give you those details on how you can get in touch with us. Next slide, please. So just a brief overview. We've completed over 25,000 engagements in the last 10 years or so. We've served more than 600 customers. That includes companies in India and also companies across the world. We work with pretty much the entire regions of the world, starting with Americas, Europe, Asia. We work with companies from all across the world. We have about 70 plus experts now, which are completely focused on product compliance. We have offices in 4 locations across all India. And we are thinking of further expanding because there is a lot of need from our customers, and we are constantly evaluating how we can better serve. So that I'll just take a pause there. I'll stop and hand it over to Ankita so that we can get into now the exciting Q&A part. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, thank you, Raman. So that's it with all the presentations from our speakers panel. Now let us move on to the Q&A section. I see that all the questions in the Q&A section at least has been answered by our representatives on board. So we have received some questions from the audience while enrolling for the webinar. I will take this opportunity to ask those questions on your behalf. First question is, Gaurav, this one is for you. What happens to those licenses which are previously being issued under older schemes, that is prior to the launching of Scheme 10?
Yeah, thank you, Ankita. Hope I'm audible. Hope I'm audible to everyone. Okay. So to answer your question, so basically, as we all know, low voltage switchgears were initially listed in ISI schemes, thereafter CRS, and then finally it moves to the new scheme, that is Scheme 10. So basically, BIS through their various notifications has already informed to the applicants or the impacted entities that all those licenses which they have obtained under previous schemes, it may be majorly Scheme 1, that is ISI scheme, all those certificates will remain be valid till the expiry of the license. Once the license is getting approached for the expiry, at that time, applicants have to ensure to file a fresh application under Scheme 10. Those certificates will not be renewed, rather they have to file a fresh application under Scheme 10. And this way, they can continue the licenses. Hope I'm able to answer your question, Ankita.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Next up is Mr. Varghese. This one is for you. Is there any chance of further extension of this QCO?
It's an interesting question. I should say that, in my long career, I have seen many compulsory products being introduced by Government of India. And every time towards the end of the implementation date, there will be a huge rush from the manufacturers associations saying that, we are not able to implement this. It has to be postponed. Every time the pressure comes, and many products, for example, transformer and all, we have shifted the implementation date 2-3 times, and there were that was due to technical difficulties of the standard. So if the standard is complete and there is no difficulty at all, and then the laboratories are ready for implementation, I don't find any reason for a shifting of the date. But if the number of products which have to be tested and the huge number of samples are pending with the laboratories, and if there is a valid reason, and just before maybe the implementation date, if there are valid reasons are there, government may consider. Otherwise, I actually don't hope for shifting of the date.
Right. Thank you, sir. Next one, Mr. Madhusudan, you may want to answer this. How to get started for Scheme 10 testing regarding splitting of tests in different labs for same product and the grouping guidelines.
Okay, so for this, there is already a guidelines available. Like if the manufacturer has their own lab, then get it approved from BIS, and BIS will do a witness for the requirements. And in that procedure, if any sequences that cannot be done within the lab, then you can opt for any of the approved labs from BIS. So that particular sequences can be done in that case for the manufacturer. The other case, when the manufacturer doesn't have any lab, and if they're looking for any approved labs from BIS, in that case, they have to do all the testing in any particular lab, only one lab for all the sequences. So their splitting is not allowed. I hope
Okay,
this
thank
answered
you.
the question. Yeah.
Yeah, surely. Thank you so much. So that's about it. If you have any further questions, you may please feel free to reach out to us. Our contact details will be shown in the next slide. And with this, we have managed to cover the webinar before time. So thank you all for being a part of today's webinar on Scheme 10. We really appreciate your active participation. Stay tuned for future updates and further webinars. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you all.